Hello, everyone. We are going to talk about a very important tool in our day-to-day lives, in economics, in businesses, in accounts, every field of life. We can make good use of this particular tool, which talks about how making decision can be made easier. And why is it so important? Because sometimes taking or making decisions becomes difficult because of the consequences of the decision that we make, or there can be so many upstream circumstances that we may suffer from decision fatigue. So we keep postponing it because we are used to the status quo, so we don't know the consequences of not taking decision at the right time. There's so many factors that make taking decision difficult. So jumping straight in, this particular tool is known as Pareto analysis, and it was basically not an analysis but an observation that was made by a sociologist who was known by the name Wilfredo Pareto. He was an Italian, and this happened around a late 1800s. He made an observation which centered around the economy of the country, that about 20% people of the country held 80% control over the wealth in the country. This particular observation was later known as the principle of unequal distribution, and this observation was so significant that we started using it in many other fields, not just economics. However, we needed an illustration for that to make things easy, because the visual effects of the phenomena that the visual impact, excuse me, of the phenomena that surround us have a lasting impact, have a greater comprehension. So it was Joseph Juran, a Romanian economist, who gave Pareto chart, and we'll talk about it in a minute. There was another refinement done by Wilkinson, who was American. He was an American economist. So what the analysis started with, it started with a single point statement, if you will, that the 80% plus minus whatever be the standard deviation, a large part, that is, of our problems are caused by a very few, let's say 20% of the causes. So when you're talking about accounts, you can say that 20% of the employees generate 80% of the revenues, or 20% of the employees come up with 80% of innovation. 20% efforts translate into 20% efforts translate into 80% of the output, so on and so forth. In economy, there can be something else. Basically, since I come from an economic background, I will talk about economics. I'll take a case study of economics. All right. So, if I can, um, if I can start with the 80%, which Pareto named as trivial many, छोटी छोटी बहुत सारी चीजें, and 20% is the vital few, handful of vital few. So what I've written here is, I've made points to streamline things. I could have done without them, but the only problem is that it's difficult to, it's not focusing. Yeah. Is it focusing now? I don't know. Give just a moment. Hmm. Yeah. So this particular thing, as I said, it talks nothing new. I already said that how we can use it in different these points talk about how we can use this particular tool in different aspects of our life. I've taken a case study wherein I have made up. I mean, I have not taken it from anywhere in the internet or virtual world. I have made come up with an example of my own to make things more clear to use. It may have a bit of iota of loopholes because um, I came up with it in a short span of time. So just make some adjustments, but I don't see there are big problems in this case study. So I'm thinking I'm giving you an instance where 1,000 factories in a particular region they fold up, they close down. So what the head of department or of all the excuse me, the head of all the department in the company or the factory do, all of these factories, they sit together and they analyze why their factories are on the verge of closing down or on the verge of folding up. So what they do, they come up with some major causes, like out of 1,000 companies, 300 companies say that's because they have excess capacity and lack of demand. That is, they already have spent a lot on the raw materials, they've already spent on the machinery, etc., 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 but the demand for their product is not much in the place that they have opened their factories in. So they are not able to generate revenues to keep going. 250 of those factories, they say there are a lot of power cuts in the region, which has led to uh, a rise in the production cost, because they are not efficient in production of uh, of their products. There's inefficiency in there, and there are 280 factories that say that there are problems in the distribution of those products. That is, either the distributors are not professional enough, or the things that they produce, let's say they produce processed food, they don't get out to the retailers in time. So there is a problem of those food reaching their expiry date earlier. And then the 170 of those factories, they say that there are problems of shortage of raw material for some reason. We'll talk about it in a minute from now. So these were the major four reasons. So before we move ahead, let's just know for a fact that Pareto analysis is not the end of the problem. It's the beginning of the solution to the problem we're facing. So let's say it's the first step. So when you start doing this, which is rather easy, when you do make a chart, it's so damn easy, which you'll know in a minute from now. You will know that 80% of the problem, 80-20 rule, yeah, 80% of the problem has already been cleared with the 20% of the effort that you've taken to make that chart. So let's carry on. So you know the x-axis, what it is this horizontal line, and you know what y-axis stands for. It's the frequency. The opposite side is the cumulative frequency in percent. So percent cumulative frequency. So 300 factory owners said that there was excess capacity or lack of demand. So we've written it here, and then 300, right? That's how we make it. We've made a bar diagram. Then 280 of them said, which was the C, like there was distribution problem. Then there were power cuts, then shortage of raw material. So these were the problems. Okay, so with we are making we are we are making this particular cumulative uh, curve. So 300 plus 280, here we've written 580, and then 580 plus 250, which would come to 930. So sorry, 830, and then the last one, 170 factories said that there were problem in the shortage in the raw material. So 170 add to it, so 1000 in all. So we have made a cumulative, uh, we made a curve that joins to that joins to be 100%. Now we take the 80% point and we extend it till it touches the curve that we've made. So these two come out to be 20% and most important of the two factors. And these two factors are excess capacity, that is lack of demand, and C, which is distribution problem. Now, as I said, more than half of the problem is solved because we know now what the real problem is. What do we do next? After that, we find the cause of the problems, the major two problems, uh, plus other problems. So excess capacity is there because there is lack of demand in the region. There were power cuts because there is infrastructural problem in the region. There is distribution problems because the roads are not good. Again, physical infrastructure is not up to the up to mark, or the staff, the distributors, the distribution network, that's not good, or not up to the mark. Then the shortage of the raw material, that again, it doesn't reach you in time because there's infrastructure problem. So all in all, you'll see there's a lot of infrastructural problem, and there is lack of demand. Mm, so one can find out whether that lack of demand is because of some short-term cause like pandemic, or is it lack of demand because that economy has bleached itself dry, it has lost vibrance, it has some deep-rooted reason in it. We'll find out. All right, so the 80% problem was lack of demand, and the second problem was power cut. Sorry, distribution. So these two were the real problems. Infrastructure, excuse the noise that's coming from outside. I can't help it. So infrastructure problem and demand problem. So when these two major problems are analyzed, the head of departments can find out whether demand problem is because the prices are really high, or there are people who are not willing to buy the product. Then you got your infrastructure problem, which you need to go to the government officials so you can try and address it. One of the major and most common solution that people like the factory owners come up with is they shift their factories, but that involves a lot of cost. So now you have to do the cost benefit analysis as well. So it's not so many analysis should not intimidate people. First find out what the major problem is with the with your factories. That's through Pareto analysis. What are the causes of those problems? That's through cause and effect. And cost benefit, can you really help it? What is the possible solution? First solution is go to the government, talk about the physical infrastructure. Otherwise you'll fold up and the region would suffer. The region would face regression in the economic activities. It'll go backwards. There would be a negative growth, or there would be deindustrialization. Second thing is why there is fall in the demand. Are the prices too high for the native population or the region, the towns or cities in in that region? or or there aren't many buyers because your product doesn't cater to the taste. What is the what is the income group that you are focusing? For example, if it is a B tier city and you are producing high end product, they're not going to buy it. For 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 example, if you want to sell Mercedes, you can't be selling it in a B tier or B tier or B C tier city or town. You need to have metropolitan cities in your on your radar. So you have to see what kind of income group make that particular region. So does that mean shifting to another place which has larger access to a greater demand, will it help? Or going to the administration will solve your problem? So this is the industry's perspective, the factory owner's perspective. Let's for a very briefly look at the government's perspective. Again, they'll carry out Pareto analysis. They would also come up with the same reasons for seeing factories folding up. And this, they are not looking out for factories folding up because they have basically invited them. They have tried to lure factories into their land for the regional development. Because we all know, if we are from economics background, we if we want a dull, gloomy doomy place to develop, you have to ask manufacturing units to come into your land and set up their units, because that's the easiest way to give that the economy of those regions a push, a boost, because people will get employed in those factories, and that's how there would be more income generated, there would be more output generated, so GDP would improve, there would be more employed people, so unemployment would decrease, and so on. All right, so government's perspective is they wanted to give their region a push by the growth strategy known as growth pole, by setting up a growth pole uh, and attracting a lot of subsidiary factories in their region, and that's how increasing the GDP and giving people employment. But it backfired, because what they did, instead of going step by step, they straight away asked the factories to come into their land and set up their factories, and promise them exemptions. But that's not how it functions. You need to first build the physical infrastructure of that place, um, and then you also need to develop good manpower. So when the combination of these two is good enough, you lot of invite a lot of different units, factory owners, industry owners, to come and set up their units in the region that you're heading. Because if I were to draw an analogy, I would say that if you haven't tilled the soil, if you haven't made sure that your soil is aerated, you can't borrow irrigation facilities, because that would not increase the fertility of the soil. You have to first do the legwork, the field work. So that's how it functions. The possible solutions that may come out of it, or of the whole case study, is that ask the government may ask for a short period of time, well, when they'll fix the infrastructural issues, they'll give more tax exemptions to the factories, and ask them not to leave. And then maybe for the excess capacity, they promise the factories that they will give them contract, uh, and they will take all the products from them, pretty much like how the government take grains from the farmers at a minimum selling price. So in that case, the government can supply those products, these semi-processed food items, or completely processed food items, in places where midday meals are given to children, or for orphanages and other places. So there can be a contract given so that the excess capacity can be put to use. So this is pretty much it. uh, I hope things got tad clear, uh, or at least much clearer than before. Mm, so this can be a great tool which can make things easier in terms of taking decision. All right.